Now, one guy who joins us on the Late Show, his name is Mark Solomon. He's a cabbie. He drives a black cab. And he started doing this thing. When he had interesting people in the back of his cab, he'd ask them for that kind of like little nugget, bit of advice, bit of wisdom. And it was so successful, he's got a book out. It's called Black Cab Wisdom. It's published by Summersdale. Mark Solomon joins us on the Late Show on Talk Sport. Mark, welcome.
Hi, how you doing, Duncan?
I'm very well, mate. Listen, thanks for coming on the show. This is a great idea. What was the catalyst? What made you start doing this?
I mean, it's definitely a need for creativity, Duncan. There's so much creativity in the cab trade, which you see just driving around. So I was always more satisfied when I took a photograph or done a little bit of creative writing with an anecdote which I've observed when I was driving. But also September 2009, there were some bereavements. And it made me a little bit bolder, I think. I thought, if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. And I just picked up a worldly wise North American passenger, and I thought to myself, I've got to ask him for a bit of advice. And I plucked up the courage to ask him, and I liked his answer, and it just continued from there. I just carried on asking passengers, and from the very beginning, Duncan, the feedback was absolutely brilliant. And, just the passengers just directed the project from there.
So you started doing this, and what, you jot them all down in a notebook or on a notepad or something?
Yeah, first I'd have a notepad on my dashboard,
Yeah.
and I'd jot them down, and then I got a bit more organised. I got myself a clipboard and with some A4 paper on, and I used to pass that through the partitioning.
Yeah.
And then it got left in the back once, and it was one of them occasions where it was one in, one out, and another passenger got in, said, "Oh, someone's left something in the back of the cab." I said, "Well, I've left that there for you." And it went from there. Now I just leave the clipboard in the back. There's a few examples from other passengers, and I see what I've got at the end of the shift.
You see, this really restores my faith in human nature. So did you find that people now, because the clipboard is in the back seat, on the back of your cab, people just pick it up, they maybe ask you what it's about, or they get an inkling from reading the other entries, and they just add to it?
Well, that's right. Obviously, there's so many good people still out there, Duncan. Some will say, "Oh, is this the last passengers?" And they'll get out and, go and run after the last passenger. I say, no, it's there for you. Completely optional. It's about fun, not pressure. Feel free to have a look. If you want to add something, you can. I tell them it's based on inspiration, but, if you want to put something wacky or something comical, you can. And the reason why, it's an ongoing project is because of their feedback. They're really enjoying it, and it was their idea. They said, "This is for a book, isn't it?" I said, "Well, no. It's just for a bit of, direction and to justify my existence." And, passengers are enjoying it. And then when enough people said this is for a book, I woke up a bit. I said, "Well, if it was, would you buy it?" And they said, "Yeah, this is a stocking filler. This is the coffee table book. Pick up, put down, a loo book, whatever you want to call it. This is a book." So I've become very confident about it. And, our job, Duncan, is so good in a way. It's probably the best networking job in the world.
Yeah.
If you're polite and authentic, people will help you. And when I was picking up, journalists or publishers, I was inquiring about how to put a book together. So they told me, "Well, you've got to put a proposal together."
Right.
And they were sort of giving me advice. I started doing that, but it wasn't up to scratch. So.
Yeah. So you went back with a redraft or whatever. I mean, what I like about this is it's kind of grown organically, hasn't it? Which is terrific. Listen, give us some of the examples, Mark, some of the little nuggets of advice or wisdom that have passed through the back of your cab.
Well, it's been thousands now. I mean, why not? The two most important days of your life, the day you were born and the day you figure out why you were born. That's from Chad. He was a guy from the United States of America. You could be sad that roses have thorns or rejoice that thorns have roses.
Is that one of your favourites? Do you have a particular favourite quote or rather a bit of advice that you adhere to?
Different ones, yeah. I mean, I regard myself as a good ideas man, but I'm not the world's best implementer, Duncan. So one passenger quote I use for myself is, "A moment's action is worth more than a year of thought." Rather than thinking about it, actually doing it.
Yeah.
There's also occasions where, there's one occasion I had two passengers from Saudi Arabia in the taxi, and it was a mother and daughter, and I told the mother what I was doing. She translated it to her daughter,
Yeah.
and the daughter responded immediately, and I thought, I hope that's a quote, and the daughter when her mother translated what the daughter had said, it was yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That's why it's called Present, and that was from a 10-year-old girl from Saudi Arabia.
Very prolific. Listen, what you've had so many people in the back of your cab.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me, and this is my final question. I want you to tell me that kind of like, I was going to use the term strange, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but the most kind of like maybe peculiar, but in a positive way, the most unusual. There's the word I'm searching for, Mark. The most unusual person you've had in the back of your cab who gave you that nugget. Because, I've been going through the book and stuff. You've had all kinds of people in there. You've had American politicians, you've had rappers, you've had a dolphin trainer. Who was the most unusual person, and what do they say?
Oh, you've put me on the spot there, haven't you, Duncan? It's, this has taught me, not to judge a book by its cover. Another memorable one was someone who got in very angry, and I was sort of kicking myself about how have I let this person into the cab.
Right.
And but it turns out, I calmed them down, and they asked what the project was about, and they give me actually a quote from Buddha, which goes, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. At the end of the day, you're the one who gets burned."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that was a memorable one because it was someone who turned full circle from getting in very angry to actually sharing something and contributing something,
I do indeed. Listen, best of luck with the book, and thank you for coming on the Late Show tonight, because I'll tell you what, I've been flicking through, and there's some right old nuggets in there. Mark Solomon, who's drives a cab. He's a London cabbie, and back in 2009, September of that year, he started asking passengers in the back of his taxi for a random quote or a proverb, started jotting it down, then put a clipboard in the back, and now he's got a book, and it's out. It's published by Summersdale. It is called Black Cab Wisdom, and it's by the man you just heard on TalkSport, Mark Solomon. I want you to text and email